Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9. The Fan.
30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. It's the George Plaster Show, featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famers Kelly Holcomb and young gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. It is kind of a cloudy, overcast Friday. Saturday, it appears we're going to get some rain. That is a little bit of your weekend forecast, as you can tell. If you're watching by way of podcast, we're at the Ford Ice Center in a conference room today. They've got a big tournament going on, and there are people everywhere. So we're probably better off where we are. Kelly Holcomb, as is the case on Fridays, has the day off. Billy Derrick does not. Hello, Billy.
Hello, George.
How you doing?
I'm good.
We got a good show today.
Yeah, jam-packed, huh?
The first guest that we will have on at 3:20 is going to tell us some things about the Army-Navy rivalry that I bet none of us understand or know about. I'm really looking forward. John Nail is his name, graduate of West Point, and through a friend of mine, Bill Armstead, this got set up, and in being able to talk to him over the last couple of days, we're in for a real treat.
Yeah, I talked to him earlier today on the phone too. I think people are going to like this interview.
Yeah. Let's start out as we do every day during football season with Terry McCormick's Daily Titans Update. Terry, of course, Main Street Media and TitanInsider.com, and he's ecstatic. His team has pulled off yet another really solid move. The Yankees feel like they're reloading, Terry.
Yeah, it's starting to look like Plan B, which was whatever they wanted to do after they were spurned by Juan Soto, is starting to take shape. And it starts with pitching. You know, first a starter in Max Fried from your Braves, now acquiring Devin Williams from the Brewers. I like it.
Devin Williams has a lethal changeup, as you know. That's sort of his out pitch, and it's a good pickup. Milwaukee under what appear to be big budgetary restraints, and the big bad Yankees swoop in.
Yeah, the Yankees did lose out on one guy that I wanted. Apparently, Kyle Tucker's going to the Cubs.
Man,
the Yankees had been rumored to be in that. So my guess is they'll probably either go for Anthony Santander of the Orioles and or Clayton Bellinger of the Cubs. Or Cody Bellinger, I should say. Clayton Bellinger was his dad, who was a Yankee, by the way.
That's true.
Terry, so you're fine. How do you feel about Soto? I know we've talked about it, but, I mean, are you fine with that move?
Well, I wanted him back. Obviously, hate to see him go, after just 1 year. But, he made his choice, so we shall see.
So be it.
Well, I mean, I think we now know the only consideration with Juan Soto was money.
Sure.
All this other crap that he put out there, I need the right fit. No, I need the money. I mean, he is Scott Boras through and through.
Yeah, I mean, I know, George, you despise the Yankees, but there are certain teams like the Yankees, the Dodgers, maybe the Red Sox, that there is an allure to playing for that team and playing for that team, being a cornerstone piece of those teams. And obviously, that was something that resonated with Aaron Judge when he tested the free agent waters, but it did not resonate with Juan Soto enough.
Oh, I mean, it's apparent to me Juan Soto's whole thing is money, nothing more, nothing less. And, he's entitled to that. I mean, he worked his way through the system, but don't put out all the false stuff about the fit and just simply about money. Yeah. Now,
and to the other thing, one last thing that as as Nick Suss of the Tennessean, who is also a Yankees fan, points out. He said, George would have never let that happen. He would have outbid the Mets, no matter what the cost. And he's probably right.
He is probably right about that. Okay, so let's talk about Titans in Cincinnati on Sunday. Terry, one thing that the Titans should be able to do is get a pass rush. Cincinnati's offensive line is pitiful. And yet a week ago against Jacksonville, the Titans didn't get much pass rush at all.
No, and that's one of the areas that they're going to have to prioritize in the offseason. I think Harold Landry's had a little bit of a down year, and you wonder, if he can rebound or if he's just reached the point in his career where, the production has dropped off a little bit. Arden Key has always been kind of inconsistent over on the other side. And I really think edge rusher is one of the positions they may look at in the first round of the 2026 draft, because like left tackles, like quarterbacks, oftentimes edge rushers don't grow on trees, and you hardly ever find a really, really good one that's not past his prime in free agency. Ironically, George, one of the things, I think it was when they signed Bud Dupree, Trey Hendrickson's agent he very much tried to sell the Titans that they needed to go after Trey Hendrickson instead of Bud Dupree. He was probably right.
Ooh, because Hendrickson, for a defense that's gotten absolutely nothing done, he has been an absolute stud.
Consistent every year.
Yeah, and this year has been just lights out.
Yeah, but that's one that they probably would like to go back and have a redo on.
So Cincinnati's got a high-powered offense. We know that. They've got very little defense. How do you see this game playing out?
Well, I think the big thing is that Cincinnati, despite slim playoff hopes, still has something to play for. And I think that, they come in here as a 4 or 5 point favorite, and that sounds about right. I do think the Titans will probably give a better account of themselves on offense than they did last week against Jacksonville. Scoring-wise, it would almost be impossible not to. But I do think they'll do a little better because the Bengals are porous on the back end with the secondary, where as long as they can keep Trey Hendrickson from clobbering Will Levis, he should have a chance to throw the ball down the field and maybe make some plays and keep the Titans in this. The other thing, too, is I think they're going to need Tony Pollard to have a big day running the ball, keeping some balance. But I still look for Cincinnati to probably pull this thing out just because their overall roster is superior to the Titans.
But if you look, both of them have got similar problems. They both have a crummy offensive line at this point. Burrow is running for his life, and to me, that is sinful. 4 years into his NFL career, as good as he is, they haven't fixed that. The Titans, with their $90 million in free agency, haven't come anywhere close to fixing their offensive line issues. The Titans' defense is better, but not that much better.
Yeah, that you're exactly right. And the thing that I wonder about with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, with the offense being so good, but the defense not being good, Hendrickson excluded, obviously, but it feels almost like that Joe Burrow right now is on one of those a Phillip Rivers type trajectory where he's really good. He gets the most out of what he has and what the offense brings to the table, but not good enough to get over the hump because of deficiencies on the roster. You agree with that?
Yeah, look, if I were Joe Burrow at the end of the year, I'd knock on the general manager's door and say, listen, I'm just going to lay it out here and I'm going to go public with this. Either you fix the offensive line or the first opportunity I get, I am out of here.
Yeah, certainly he would seem to hold all the cards.
He holds all the cards. Leverage Burrow. Terry, we'll check back in with you on Monday and see what other trades you all have made.
All right, sounds good, George. Have a good weekend.
And we'll also ask the question, what's my team doing? See you, Terry.
See ya.
Billy, the Kyle Tucker trade is a big one, and I would guess it's up near the top of our update.
Well, you guys got to it, so we'll kind of table that. But the update is brought to you by.
I want to know what Houston got.
Oh, okay. It was not at the top of the update, but just to let you know,
it should be at the top of the update.
Oh, Kyle Tucker going to the Cubs.
That's a big move. Kyle Tucker, to me, is a superstar.
All right, well,
and to me, it guarantees that Cody Bellinger is going somewhere else. I wouldn't mind having Cody Bellinger.
Well, the update is brought to you by Lori Barnette Leland. You can find her online, mortgageladyusa.com, or give her a call, 615-969-4350. The Astros, of course, traded Kyle Tucker to the Cubs this afternoon. That completed a wild 72 hours for the two clubs who confronted a crossroads. The Astros will receive a package that includes infielder Isaac Paredes, right-hander Hayden Wesneski, and infield prospect Cam Smith, league sources told The Athletic.
It feels like the Astros are starting a rebuild.
You can say that again.
It does feel that way.
So Tucker to the Cubs. That's a big blow to the Astros, but obviously big help to the Cubs. Last night, Preds snap an 8-game losing streak as they beat the Stars in Dallas 4-1. Ryan O'Reilly had 2 goals and 1 assist. And 24-year-old, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but his first name is Justice Annunen.
Yeah.
He stopped a season-high 35 shots. No other goalie this year for the Preds has been able to play like that, so maybe this kid can get hot.
Well, I'm not putting this team's pathetic beginning on UC Saros. I'm just not. But
you got to admit, Saros was not playing particularly well.
No, but I mean, how much of it's his fault?
Right.
So the Predators played their most complete game since they beat Winnipeg before Thanksgiving, and that is the problem. You can't play a great game every 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's string a few together and see if there's something to talk about. Because right now, the question is this a moment in the sun in a sea of darkness? Who knows? Hope not.
So up next for the Preds is what exactly?
Colorado tomorrow night in Denver.
Okay. Also, last night, the Rams earned an ugly, rain-soaked but crucial win. They punted 5 straight times. Cooper Kupp had 0 catches in a game for just the 3rd time in his career, and this is the first NFL game all season without a touchdown. Rams beat the Niners 12-6. Big night for Puka Nacua, but that was an awful watch.
It was a great call on my end.
It was.
Big win.
Why were the Niners 3-point favorites?
I don't know, because they're at home and they've still got a lot of pieces. Something's going on out there.
It's also in the NFL, in that game, with injuries to their linebackers building up late in the game, the Niners turned to veteran Devondre Campbell to enter the game. Campbell declined the invitation. Campbell walked to the locker room with a towel over his head without playing a snap. Kyle Shanahan said, as George is
gasping and
having a coughing fit here. I think you might.
Thanks for showing that.
Might need some water. I think this is going to continue, so we'll let George get some water. Campbell walked to the locker room with a towel over his head without playing a snap. Shanahan, after the game, said he didn't want to play today. When asked on a conference call today if he anticipated Campbell would be on the team in Week 16 and beyond, Kyle Shanahan said, "No, I don't." So,
I got a lot of great lines, some of which I can't use here, but Campbell is toast.
Yeah, I think you can say that again.
There's only one way he could come back to that team, and that is to walk into that locker room and apologize. There's some pissed off veterans on that team about what happened last night.
According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, Mike Vrabel is being linked to the Cowboys and Raiders if they make a coaching change. Several NFL teams view Vrabel as a prime candidate, and he's already generating some interest. He's currently serving as a consultant in Cleveland.
So there's no surprise to this other than to say, okay, now that Belichick is out of the mix, Vrabel does become a prime deal. Let's also say this. Vrabel is the one who told Amy that Rand Carthon wasn't ready for this job. And it apparently pissed her off. But you know what? I don't know. Maybe he's right.
He looks right now. Also, college football tomorrow. Army has a chance to end the season 13-1. The most they've ever had is 10.
Wow.
Well, I mean, they're at 11 right now, but by the they got a bowl game as well. They could get to 13 wins, and of course they've been rolling over Navy here as of late. Army is a 6.5-point favorite. Kickoff at 2:00. We'll of course talk a lot more about that game coming up with John Nail, and then also tomorrow night, South Alabama and Western Michigan in the Veterans Bowl as well. So the bowl season begins tomorrow. Also, Travis Hunter piled up the hardware at the College Football Awards last night. He won the Walter Camp Award as Player of the Year, the Chuck Bednarik Award as the top defensive player, and the Biletnikoff Award for the best receiver. But he did not win the Jim Thorpe Award for the best defensive back, and Deion Sanders wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, whatever.
Also, Ashton Genty won the Maxwell Award as the top player and the Doak Walker Award for the top running back. Cam Ward, Davey O'Brien Award for the top quarterback, and Coach of the Year, Kurt Signetti.
Years ago, I won the award, most likely to end up in summer school.
Also, Virginia Tech's Brent Pry has fired defensive coordinator Chris Marv. If you remember, Marv played at Vanderbilt under Bobby Johnson, later coached under James Franklin. This surprised me a little bit. Obviously, it was a disappointing year for the Hokies. They also fired strength and conditioning coach Dwight Galt, who was also a coach under James Franklin. So he goes out with the bathwater for a couple of former Vandy assistants. The Hokies entered the season hovering around the top 25. They went 6-6, losing 3 of their last 4 games. So a lot of big changes with Virginia Tech. LSU head coach Brian Kelly and his wife announced they will match up to $1 million in donations with a gift to LSU's foundation, the Tiger Athletic Foundation's Excellence Fund. It's part of a plan to ramp up LSU's NIL efforts.
Wonderful.
Also, college basketball tomorrow. Big day of college basketball. I don't know why this is starting at 10 a.m., but Memphis and Clemson tomorrow on ESPN2. 4:15, Louisville and Kentucky, and then at 4:30, Tennessee and Illinois.
And later on, Taylor Barnette will join us around 4:30 to talk about the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry because at one point, Taylor was an assistant at Louisville, so he knows full well the intensity of that. We ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay. After the break, you're going to learn more about the Army-Navy rivalry than you probably have ever thought. John Nail, West Point graduate, will join us next. This is 94.9 The Fan.
It was the most horrible experience that any mother could ever go through. I knew that I needed to get help. My friend, she immediately said, "You need to call Bart Durham." And you guys were there within an hour. You guys are like family for us.
Yeah, sure is nice to connect with the people that you're doing your best to help.
It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling, they enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun. Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, Dial them up, 615-793-9500, or log on to ventureexpress.com.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donley Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donley have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to donleytimmons.com. Completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to donleytimmons.com.
Bowl season lives here.
Coming up Saturday, it's the Cricket Celebration Bowl between Jackson State and South Carolina State in Atlanta. Our coverage on 102.5 The Game begins at 11.
Your sports live here on the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We are back. As most of you know, Army and Navy play tomorrow in, I guess, a suburb of Washington, Landover, Maryland, where the Commanders play their home games. My fascination about the Army-Navy football game goes back to a book by the guy that I think is the best sports author in the country, and that's John Feinstein. He wrote a book called Civil War that I read cover to cover, and it's just incredible the things you read about those two teams. What basically happened is that John was given access to both of those teams for a year to write the book, and I would tell any of you, if you haven't read it, get it. It'll blow your mind. So I wanted to come up with somebody today that could talk to me a little bit about Army-Navy and what it means to both schools. And with that in mind, a friend of mine, Bill Armstead, just sort of dropped an idea. I jumped all over it, which was to talk to a good friend of his, John Nail, who is a West Point graduate. John joins us by phone. John, thank you for doing this.
An absolute honor and a privilege. I'm excited to be here.
Gosh, it's the other way around. So I think most of us at least have this one piece of working knowledge, that these young men that represent both of these service academies, they don't just lounge in bed all day and then show up for football practice. The level of work put on them besides their football life is massive, and I know you can tell me a lot more.
Absolutely. A West Point football player is part of the Corps of Cadets, and their day is going to start at 5:20 in the morning. You know, that's not happening a lot with your other SEC schools in the listening area. And they're going to do the normal duties of a plebe or a freshman, and they are going to go to class. The only thing that's slightly different about their education or their football experience is they do get double portions at lunch, but they live amongst the cadets. So it's not uncommon. In fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Mike Lemming, who's a 4-year starter, offensive lineman. He said, my very best friends were my roommates that weren't football players. So these players are within the Corps of Cadets and conducting themselves and held to the same standards as all the other cadets who just don't play varsity Division I football.
And John, everything I think I know, same story at the Naval Academy?
Absolutely. It's a tough road to hoe. The academic load is not lightened based on your academy, and it's an over 20-hour semester. So that it does not include any type of military instruction, honor instruction, tactics, or military instruction of past, present, or future. So that's on top of, and oh, by the way, you're going to go play Notre Dame this weekend, or Tulane in a conference championship, or Navy. So it is a extraordinary demand on these young men's time.
So anybody you see on that field tomorrow, you have to say is exceptional, period.
Without a question. There is a sign at Mikey Stadium that says, "I need an officer for a secret and dangerous mission." And it says, "I need a West Point football player." The West Point football player is got everything that you could imagine thrown at him on a daily basis that no other collegiate players have before they get to practice. And the physical walk from West Point to the stadium, which is a literal walk, is probably a mile, and it's almost straight uphill. So it is a very exceptional path, and I'm proud to have graduated, and it means more now to me than it did last year. So it's these kids need to be celebrated, and it's a teaching moment for anybody that's going to be tuning in tomorrow.
So I know you've read the book as well that Feinstein wrote, Civil War. And one of the things that, it really choked me up when I read it was there was a young man at Army who clearly was a great leader. And there was a young guy at Navy that was clearly a great leader. And these two had never met. They had played against each other for 4 years, and apparently it was going to be allowed after the game that down in the bowels of the stadium, they would finally meet. And it was almost like they were brothers. And the way John wrote it just blew me away. And I'm guessing you remember that as well.
Absolutely. This is a rivalry that's not born out of hatred. It's born out of pure brotherly love for one another. This is a small pool of recruited athletes, and we want to beat Navy as if you would want. Everybody has their own Navy. That may be your brother. It may be a rival at school. But these are equally matched, and what is going to win the day is extra effort, grit, strength, willpower. But it's not born out of hatred. And so you will be serving these guys on the field tomorrow in some way, shape, or form will be deploying, and they're going to be serving right alongside of their Navy brethren. So it is not a game in which you despise the other person. It is a game that you want to desperately win, yet you have the utmost respect for your opponent.
And that was one of the things that really struck me in the book, John, was it's not, for instance, there's a kid at Army that I think's a really good football player in Bryson Daly, but it's not as though he's going to end his Army career and then it's automatically onto the combine and the NFL draft to find out, where he stacks up to the teams. These young men on both of these sides, they're preparing for war, aren't they?
Without question. Bryson Daly is going to graduate and then he's probably going to go to airborne school if he hasn't already done so. And then he's likely going to infantry officer basic course. Then he's going to go to the U.S. Army Ranger School. And he is preparing to fight and defend our country. And that is, and as you can see, he's a leader amongst his teammates, and he will be a leader amongst the son and daughter of America as an officer. So absolutely, and just to get to the rivalry and how special it is, I almost guarantee that Bryson knows the Navy's fight songs and the Navy's alma mater. They're taught that. West Point football players are taught the opponent's songs that they should sing to honor the opponent. That's not happening with a lot of rivalries.
And I know that when one of the things that's really cool, CBS has shown this game now for I don't know how many years, but when it's over, both sides play their alma maters, and man, you can hear a pin drop when that's going on.
Without question, the objective is to sing second, so the victor, gets their alma mater sung second, and everyone is participating, win or lose, in the opposing academy's alma mater. And I don't think that any West Point graduate that is listening to this call right now has ever not choked up when we've sung our alma mater. It is, the West Point idea of much of the history we teach is made by the people that we've taught. It's visceral. It's meaningful. And so the same words have been sung before all conflicts. So it weaves throughout every cadet's life and this game, and the entire stadium is respectful during that moment.
John Nail is a graduate of West Point, and I know I'm probably not saying all this stuff correctly, and hopefully he'll kind of clean up my mess during this interview. But he joins us to talk about a great football game tomorrow. John, yesterday when you and I talked on the phone, most of us in the sports talk world, we talk about Michigan, Ohio State, or Alabama, Auburn, and locally it's Tennessee and Vandy, and this team wants to beat that team, and you get state pride or you get bragging rights in the Big Ten. Talk to me a little bit about how this rivalry is viewed by these two teams and what really is at stake that our listeners, and I wouldn't have had any clue until you kind of clued me in yesterday.
Well, I think that the way I've described this game is it's starting in living rooms. It's aged. It's a teaching moment for parents and their young children or their son. And you're pretty much born being a Army supporter or a Navy supporter. And then that permeates through your whole life, whether or not you're going to root for Army or root for Navy. But what most people don't realize is that the results of the game has a tremendous impact on one of the most difficult aspects that either the Army or the Navy faces, and that's recruiting. So a classmate of mine, Eric Lopez, was a brigade commander, large responsibility in the recruiting world, and the winner tomorrow is going to wind up with, because of the impression and the pageantry, they're going to wind up with an estimated 100,000 more recruits into that branch. And most people don't realize that impact on our national defense and what a moment in time this is to really highlight really important aspects that are necessary, especially given what we've gone through this past year, necessary moments for our national defense. So there's much more than a win or a loss at stake here.
Tell me this. Obviously, I'm fascinated by some stuff about this that, I have no clue. And so it's great getting you on here. But help me to understand this part. You've got coaches who are out there in the real world of coaching who come to either Army or Navy. In recent years, it was Ken Niumatalolu at Navy. Jeff Monken has had great success at Army. But these guys kind of do this with their hands tied behind their backs. And I guess I'm curious, do the coaches ever complain about the limitations and the hardships that their players deal with, or is it absolutely taboo and a coaches never say anything?
Well, I would hope they wouldn't say anything because they're going into this with their eyes wide open. Coach Monken, who's done an outstanding job for Army here. The West Point system has been in existence since the early 1800s, and they started playing football consequently after Navy did by a few years. But they know the rigor, they know the schedule, they know the height weight requirements, and they know that your recruiting pool is much more challenging than, say, some of these academic schools like a Vanderbilt. This is a different animal. So there is no NIL, there is no transfer portal. I guess you could transfer out, but you're not transferring in based on the congressional mandate and of the entrance requirements. But yes, it is a widely known, and it has to be embraced. And Coach Monken or any of these long-term coaches need to be applauded for sticking with a program that is unique and very challenging. And these cadets, they're not going to change the standards in the academic world or in the physical fitness world. A cadet that's a freshman is going to take boxing. Well, if you're boxing and you're a defensive end, you still got to take boxing, and that may fall during the season. So whether or not that is a negative impact on your preparedness for the game, it's a fact, and it's not going to change. And coaches that take on that challenge need to be, applauded.
Billy, we're learning some stuff.
Sure are.
Let's do this. John, will you stick around for a little bit of a second segment with us?
Absolutely. It's an honor.
John Nail, graduate of West Point, kind of teaching us a little bit about what we watch tomorrow and what behind the scenes goes on for them to have that magic moment, that 3 hours together. We'll go to the break. I think you'll enjoy more of what we've got with John Nail. This is 94.9 The Fan. This is my buddy Stan Harrison from Apple Collision Centers. Recently, you've been talking to me about companies that have a fleet of trucks and they're always in need of repairs.
That's right, George. We understand that nobody likes to deal with the auto body repair process. We try to simplify that at our 3 convenient locations. We work with all major insurance companies. We help to ease the stress of the auto body repair process. We're located in Old Hickory, Hendersonville, and Gallatin. If you need our services, please stop by and see us.
And how convenient that we have that in the background. Now, seriously, these are good folks. They do really good work. Give them a holler.
You were in a crash.
Yeah.
Your kids were in the car with you.
We're very lucky to even be telling this story to you. Nikki treated us like family, and she was very caring and loving, and I'm just so grateful for that. She was somebody I could trust, and being a veteran, that's so important to me. My kids are going to have a better life now because I don't have to worry about those expenses that we were out. Your family has really created a legacy of trust, and I would recommend you to anyone.
Over the years, more men have started to seek help for hormone deficiencies and imbalances, and Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and wife Daphne, along with their experienced staff, give men the treatment required to improve their quality of life, improve your immune system, energy level, cognitive function, and more. There's no better time to achieve a healthy lifestyle. What are you waiting for? Give Cool Springs MD a call today for an appointment at 615 486-3458, or visit the website coolspringsmd.com. Are you concerned about the Medicare Part D changes for 2025? Believe me, you're not alone. You need to contact Pancos Benefits. They'll make the changes clear and easy to understand. Trust Pancos to guide you through it all. Their knowledgeable team is here to help you understand the updates and make informed decisions about your Medicare coverage. Don't navigate these changes alone. Call Pancos Benefits today at 615-292-3400 and choose option 3, or visit pancosbenefits.com. That's 615-292-3400 and choose option 3.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank & Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Your sports live here.
On ESPN 94.9.
And the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We're back. Before we continue our interview with John Nail, who has taught us already a ton about this great Army-Navy rivalry, Billy, if you will, pull up in our chat room what a listener said. This guy, John Nail, is incredible. So great to hear the history. Glad you are keeping him on for the extension. Bill, it is our pleasure. Believe me. John, you've won a fan already.
Well, I didn't expect that, but when I was 12 years old, I remember the gentleman that exposed me to what West Point was, and so I'm hoping that this listener, I'm hoping that it's going to have a positive impact somewhere out there, because we need the best and the brightest to serve our country, and West Point and Navy. We need people to take on that challenge.
John, on the football front, both of these schools have had breakout years. Is it just a coincidence, or is there something in the water these days that is leading to this uprising by both of them?
I think that the conference change this year has created a little bit more predictability in terms of a little bit, maybe some more scouting, as opposed to, hauling off and going and playing Oklahoma or Michigan. I mean, it's tough to recuperate week after week based on, the different size and requirements that are associated with an academy player. But I think that the conference has created a whole lot, has a lot to say for the breakout seasons for both teams.
Tell me what you know about Bryson Daly, because I've now seen him about 4 different times this year, and it's hard for him not to get your attention. He is really good.
He's outstanding. I think he's scored 29 times. I mean, think about that. That's incredible. And people that aren't aware and they tune in tomorrow, they're not going to see Army punt. They may punt some. And they're going to see Bryson Daly, who has an incredible nose for the ball. He knows where the first down marker is. Obviously, he knows where the end zone is. But he's going to handle the ball most carries, and then Kanye Udo will handle probably the rest. Maybe a pass, maybe 2 passes. But if you think about that for the entirety of the season, that's a tough player. That's a player that should be highlighted any possible moment on any possible sports talk venue.
Honestly, I thought he should have been invited into the Heisman ceremony, but I don't control that. Billy, I know you've been listening to this, and you got a couple of questions for John, one of which I can't wait to hear the answer to.
Yeah, I'm going to start with something pretty cool. John, we talked this morning, and we talked about your boat that has a certain phrase on it. Can you tell some of our listeners about that?
Yeah, so my boat is named Beat Navy, and I have had a lot of reactions. And when I'm out there in the ocean, you may think that it's not the smartest name to have on your boat. There's a lot more Navy supporters in the middle of the ocean than there would be Army, but it's so important to me how this results go that I said that's too cool of a name to pass up. So yes, it is kind of a running joke that the West Point community tends to love, but it is a fact. It is the Beat Navy.
I love it. The other one I had is, it's always Army, Navy, but why? Well, where did Air Force? I don't know if they fell out. Like, why is the big game at the end of the season Army and Navy as opposed to maybe Navy and Air Force or Army and Air Force? Why isn't the Air Force Academy a little bit more of a focus here late in the season?
So the Naval Academy started playing football a couple years before West Point and Army, but the Army cadets actually paid 50 cents a head to shuttle the Navy team from Annapolis to play in November of 1890 the first time. So West Point is the oldest and where all the other service academies have spawned from. So the best answer I'll give you is I think it's tradition. That was the first game, and just based on national wars, Army actually had a player who died, and they canceled all their games at the turn of the century, which was, in the late 1890s. They had a player who died, canceled all their games. So the Air Force is just so much younger, newer, more junior that they just didn't exist as this rivalry and this pageantry and this intensity. It's aged throughout the years.
Another one I've got, I know you've been to these, whether you were a cadet or as a fan, after your time there. Take me through a day of Army Navy. And so I guess specifically as a cadet, I know you've probably had some fun times traveling to these games as a fan later, but what is this day like as a cadet who's not on the team, maybe before the game?
Billy, I'll tell you that after he answers it, you're going to look up and say, okay, that's why I didn't do that.
Well, inevitably, it's freezing cold. So my plebe year, Philadelphia, vet, in the vet, it's 10 degrees. You're in the traditional long overcoat uniform. You're going to see it. And anything associated with the Army, they're not going to leave anything to chance. And so you're lining up for march on, right? The sun's barely up. And the night before, you may have let your hair down and, stayed out a little later, especially if you're an upperclassman. So you're going to be there, right about the sun coming up, and it's freezing cold, and you're there. And depending on whether you're a plebe or an upperclassman, your experience could be different based on, if anybody's, harassing you or asking you to sing the alma mater or sing the Army's fight song and so on and so forth. You're going to be in formation. You're going to run through the commands associated with what's going to go on with the march on. And as you watch them tomorrow, they do everything in unison, which is practiced the entire week before. And there will be a cadet standing at the top tomorrow of the Commander Stadium, and they'll be waving a flag, and those flags and the repetition really sets it sets the commands for what the Corps of Cadets are going to do, which are traditional Army type cheers. So the game is mandatory, and if you don't, if you're not a cadet in good standing, which happens, you will be on the boomerang option. So the crown jewel of free time and enjoyment for the Army Navy, or for the entire semester, is the Army Navy game. But cadets that aren't in good standing, you're going to be on the boomerang option. So you're waking up at dark 30, riding a bus, getting there for marching on, enjoying the game, and then you're boomeranging right back to West Point. So you don't even get a chance to enjoy. So then the game, and then after the game, you get to enjoy that night with your family, friends, or classmates, revel hopefully with a victory, and then you're back at West Point the next day, standing tall and ready to go at 1900 or 7 p.m., getting ready for the dreaded term ends that are happening in the following week.
John, how you feeling about tomorrow? Does the Army get it done?
Of course they do.
Well, I like our chances. I like our game plan. I like our creativity. Our quarterback is unbelievable. But when it comes to Navy's entire purpose is to spoil this record season for us. I feel very confident that we can make it happen based on the squad that I've watched this season. But I don't leave anything to chance. I will be nervous until we sing second. How's that?
John, all of us owe both the West Point and the Annapolis grads a huge debt of gratitude. We don't say it enough. We probably don't wake up with that being one of the first things on our mind, but we do owe that debt of gratitude. And I owe a huge debt to both you and Bill Armstead, because you've done exactly what I wanted to do during this hour, and that is give people a little bit of behind the scenes of what makes this so special. So I say thank you. I look forward to meeting you down the line somewhere.
Well, it's been a complete honor for me. Anytime that any graduate can spend a moment highlighting Army, our country, these cadets, it's part of the service to the country. And we need to get back to the idea that we're now recognized in today's world of being in the military, but not so long ago. And this is where these kids differentiate themselves. You weren't in the Army, you were in the service. And so whether it's Army or Navy, these kids are there serving our country. They just happen to be outstanding football players in a contest tomorrow. But any time that you could have somebody on there speaking and highlighting these fine young men and women, it's an honor.
John, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Beat Navy.
I love it.
Yes, sir.
I think they've got that one memorized. John, thank you. Hey, Billy, if you will, pull up the comments section again. Okay, same stuff. He did exactly what I hoped would happen, which would open our eyes a little bit to how special these young men are on both sides of that field.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into what they do. I mean, it's not, like he said, depending on where you stand in the Army, you could be taking a bus on the way to the game and then leaving right back, right back headed up to West Point after that. So, you got to earn your stripes as a spectator of the game too. That was cool.
Okay, after the break, we'll have stat of the day, and then we will talk to one of my favorite people in the sportscasting world. I got to know him very early, and I will tell you that in the years that he broadcast from the SEC basketball tournament, SEC hoops was a lot more fun when Tim Brando was in the house. He's a great storyteller. Can't wait to have him on. Get ready. We got plenty more coming on 94.9 The Fan.
Where can you see a saber-toothed tiger rappel from the rafters? How about a catfish fly? The biggest stars in Music City. Not to mention hockey's hottest ticket.
The Predators win!
Only in Smashville. See your Nashville Predators all season long at Bridgestone Arena. Single game tickets are on sale now at NashvillePredators.com. Let's go, Preds!
Star Physical Therapy was established in 1997 with one great mission: to serve. If you're hurting, don't wait to receive physical therapy. You don't need a referral to see their physical therapist, and early morning and evening appointments are available. Make the call to 615-673-1420 and get rid of that pain. Star Physical Therapy, the official health provider of Football Friday.
Convenience and value, two words that we expect when we do business. Our goal at JHA Company is to deliver just that, both to our school partners and to our customers. Whether you're purchasing photos, yearbooks, class jewelry, letter jackets, school spirit wear, or senior graduation products, we strive to make the experience easy, convenient, and cost-effective. Find out more at jhacompany.com or call 615-867-6345 for more information. JHA, one source, one company.
99. Lips portable Bluetooth party speaker, only $99. GE smooth top electric range, just $519. JBL Bluetooth speaker, only $119. Get up to 24 months free financing. Visit any Electronic Express location or electronicexpress.com.
Evan Canty and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
I don't think there's any team that is more disappointing in the NFL currently than the Chicago Bears. Heading into this season, we talked about what a great job the Chicago Bears did. They lied in wait and passed on CJ Stroud, and they got their guy in Caleb Williams. And I would say at the end of all of this with the Chicago Bears, we're going to view this season as a failure for them.
Evan Canty and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
All these other teams that we're talking about competing for championships, they're going to be getting better. Nobody is stagnant. If you win a Super Bowl, that's because your team is really, really talented and you continue to ascend while other teams plateau. The question is, have we seen the best version of the Philadelphia Eagles this season? And I don't think it's off the board that might be the case.
Unsportsmanlike. Weekday mornings starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2. Chris Carlin, Joe Fortenbaugh. This is Carlin versus Joe.
I was told there's Shador and then there's a big drop-off. And now all of a sudden here we are with the mock drafts, and now Cam Ward's all the way up there.
There's two quarterbacks in this draft, Max, that I really would trust.
And this is coming from the guy who said Stroud would be better than Young. So anyone driving around right now who's thinking, I don't know, Carlin, it's December, what have you really done? He's done the work.
Carlin versus Joe. Weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and on SiriusXM Channel 80.
It's Larry from Shelby, previously on the Paul Feinbaum Show.
Cole Auerbach has a piece about how we have a seeding problem.
It's not even just that it's confusing. It's that it's not fair to the number one overall team. You're not supposed to be dealing with the most challenging possible path to a national champion if you have earned the number one overall seed.
The Paul Feinbaum Show, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the ESPN app and on the SEC Network.
Experience the thrill of gaming glory at Harrah's Metropolis Casino and Hotel, just a little over 2 hours northwest of Nashville off I-24. Call 1-800-HARRAHS and reserve your room today. Indulge in appetizing dining experiences along with the hottest slots and table gaming. As a Caesars Rewards destination, every moment you spend at Harrah's Metropolis earns you points across the entire Caesars empire. It's your time to win at Harrah's Metropolis. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Know when to stop before you start. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. All around the world on the Game Nashville app. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9. The Fan.
It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We're talking to Tim Brando coming up next, but first, Stat of the Day brought to you by Apple Collision Centers. You can find them in Old Hickory, Hendersonville, or Gallatin. Give them a call, 615-754-9800, or log on to their website. That's applecollisioncenters.com. All right, moving on to Stat of the Day. Cam Ward is involved in the question. He became the first Miami quarterback to win the Davey O'Brien Award. Since whom?
Okay, let's run through a few. Bernie Kosar, Vinny Testaverde, Ken Dorsey, oh gosh, I know I'm missing one that's obvious, and I can't think of it right now. I'm going to go Vinny Testaverde. That's an easy one to toss out there. I don't know if it's right or wrong, and I know I'm missing one that ought to be in there. Let's see who it is.
Gino Toretta.
Oh, God. How could I have done that?
I vaguely remember his name.
Oh, my God.
Gino.
Gino was a heck of a football player. In fact, you think about it. Let me go back one more. Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly. Okay, I see the answer, Billy. I'll let you kind of take it. Apparently, a little bit of trouble reaching Tim. Jim Kelly in 79, before anybody knew that University of Miami football was going to explode, they played Vandy in Nashville, and Jim Kelly, turn that down if you will. Jim Kelly was the quarterback of the Miami Hurricanes. You look at the level of how many great quarterbacks they had in a short amount of time. Jim Kelly, Bernie Kosar, Vinny Testaverde, Gino Toretta, now Cam Ward, the young guy Alex Van Dyke. I mean, it's kind of a who's who of great quarterbacks. It was kind of a quarterback U at Miami, and why I couldn't come up with Toretta, shame on me.
Yeah, I like I said, I remember that name, not as clearly as you, but
okay, we ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna try and do a good intro here, and I've done this before when we've had him on. In the sports broadcasting world, there are any number of people who are really good play-by-play announcers. There's also a list of sports broadcasters that are really good studio hosts, but there are virtually none who are great at both. Tim Brando has been great at both over a long period of time, and he joins us by phone. Tim, you owe me $1. That was a damn good intro.
I'm blushing. I wish you could see it because that rarely happens, as you know. How you doing, George?
I'm doing, yeah, Merry Christmas to you. It is great to hear your voice.
Well, as I say, the mouth that roared is still roaring, whether they like it or not. And I'm having more fun now than I ever have. I'm up in Jersey, and it's gotten dark now, so I'm looking for the drones. I'm told that they're here, and they come out in abundance once the sun goes down. And I'm on the 6th floor, this is a 6th floor hotel in New Brunswick, New Jersey, just outside Piscataway. I've got the Garden State Classic, the Garden State Hardwood Classic tomorrow between Seton Hall and Rutgers at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central on Fox. So if you're looking for a little round ball, if the Army-Navy game's getting away a little bit, tune in and turn on. You'll find Timmy B there.
Just out of curiosity, what makes the Rack such a hard place for the visitor?
It's really like Memorial Gym in some ways, in that although it's a lot smaller, you do get a feeling that the players are on a stage. The broadcasters and most of the media most of the media, including the broadcasters, are elevated somewhat, not like to the rafters like you are at Cameron Indoor Stadium, but you are, for instance, kind of on the second deck. There are literally rows of fans between you and the floor when you're calling the game. And I think it's because those seats are in such close proximity to the benches and to the floor itself. It's as if the crowd noise for those of us that are calling the game, by example, is both behind us and in front of us. So it really transmits, I think, well, over the air. You don't ever, sometimes when you're at a game, and I've watched games that are being done at places like Memorial Gym and in Lexington, Kentucky, by example, two big places with usually great crowd support. And depending on the decibel level, sometimes what you're feeling and what you're hearing while you're calling the game, you go back and you look at it on, in the old days, it would have been a VHS tape. Now it would be DVD. You go back and look at it, and it doesn't translate on television. But that's never a problem here. It's just absolutely never a problem here. And I think it's because the place seats about 8,500, and it's an old building, and anything that's going to make noise is going to make a louder noise in there, like an echo chamber. And, the athletic director is having to remind the sports information people to tell the broadcasters to please call it Jersey Mike's. They did pay $30 million for the rights to the naming of the place. But as I told the SID, I said, listen, I'll call it Jersey Mike's. No problem with that. I said, but at some point, I am going to make reference to the building formerly known as the Rack, because it was synonymous.
Yeah.
It was one of the great pits of college basketball, and was, when Vital had that team with Dabney and all those guys that made it to the Final Four in 1976. I was 20 years old there. I remember that. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
So the building has a lot of history and tradition to it. And so they've had some unbelievable wins through the years, as recently as, not last year, but the year before. They beat Purdue both times they played them at Purdue and again here in New Jersey. So they've been a great program under Steve Peichel. He got them back to the NCAAs for the first time in almost an eternity in 21. And now he's got two of the best freshmen in the country. He's got the third leading scorer in the country and two guys that are probably going to be taken as lottery picks in the upcoming draft. Ron Harper's next son, Dylan Harper, and the kid that you guys remember well that played with Jamichael Davis in Chattanooga, down in Chattanooga at McEachern High School. This kid, Ace Bailey, Arias Ace Bailey, is just out of sight. I went to their practice today, and look, they're 6-4 right now, George, but there are a couple of bad bounces from winning two other games in Vegas that where they played. They beat Notre Dame and they lost to Alabama and to another really good SEC team after that, Texas A&M. Buzz Williams has got a good team, but this is a very young team. They got 9 new guys. They've only got one returning player from a year ago. So I think they're going to make hay in the Big Ten. Once they get into conference play, the Big Ten is not as strong this year. And I think this team is going to be real trouble for people in late February and March. I really do.
Tim, early in our careers, when the SEC would only show one basketball game a week at 2:00 Central Time, both of us became friends with the legendary Joe Dean Sr. What do you think he would say right now up in heaven as he sees the SEC exploding in basketball, which is what he always wanted, and he wanted people to notice it?
Yeah. Well, I think he'd be saying, I told those people in Birmingham, I've been trying to tell them, in the 80s there was a lottery pick on virtually every team, and the only people that didn't know it were the people in the SEC. And it was true. I mean, if you look back in the early 80s, when Dale was making his run at LSU, and Hugh Durham had Dominique and those guys that made it to the Final Four in '83, and so many other great teams. Somebody other than Kentucky started making it to the Final Four, and that really lasted all the way into the mid '90s when Mississippi State made it, to East Rutherford and got to the Final Four with Dante Jones and those guys. And it's funny. I remember vividly having these conversations with Joe Dean Sr. and his son JoJo, who worked with me. I always thought when I was working with JoJo that I was in a time warp, and somehow I had become John Ferguson, working with Joe Dean on those SEC TVS games that you and I watched when we were growing up.
Oh yeah.
Neil Walk was playing at Florida, and the F Troop was playing, and and Pistol Pete had just left, and when Pistol Pete did play, against Dan Issel and those guys. But the public relations work and really the media in general, the sports media. I remember this when I went into Baton Rouge. The reason why Dale Brown and I became such close friends was because probably myself, Ron Higgins, who's Ace Higgins' son, the former SID at LSU. Mad Dog is a great writer. He's kind of a modern day Dan Jenkins, I think. He brings a lot of humor to his work. Ron Higgins and Sam King, who was a writer for the Morning Advocate. There were about three of us that really cared about college basketball. Nobody else in that market did. I mean, nobody. They kind of viewed basketball in the late 70s, in mid to late 70s, and into the even after Pete was there, it didn't catch on. I mean, it just didn't catch on. It was like, well, he's a great player, but it's spring football that we care about. It really was not just at LSU, but this was going on virtually everywhere in the conference, with the exception of Kentucky, and maybe a little bit there in Nashville, because and in Knoxville, where Ray Mears had some success, and Vanderbilt had some good teams. That Van Bredikoff had, was there. And there were some good teams that Vandy had for a period of time. But, Alabama had C.M. Newton, and that was a great team, probably the team that had the best chance of beating Indiana in '76 in the regionals. In Baton Rouge, by the way, was Indiana with Leon Douglas and those guys. But nobody in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, really engaged with basketball. It took Whip Sanderson wearing plaid jackets and throwing them all over the court, during games for them to get attention. And even after 4 straight Sweet 16s, which he had in the 80s, and all those trips to the SEC title game, basketball was just sort of an afterthought. I really am glad to see the resurgence, because as you know, maybe, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, the league was really in bad shape. Only got 3 bids to the NCAA.
Oh yeah.
I credit Mike Slive for a lot of things. But maybe one of the greatest moves the late Mike Slive made was reaching out and getting some help with the consultant that had been Dave Gavitt's right-hand man with the Big East, and had later become the commissioner of the Big East. And he had strong ties to Providence, and he hired him as a consultant to come in and say, we need to find better coaches, innovative coaches, and we got to energize our basketball because we're missing out. And that guy did a tremendous job for the conference. And I'm trying to remember his name now, and it's escaping me. You could probably Google it. Former Big East commissioner.
It wasn't Tranghese, was it?
Yes, Mike Tranghese. Thank you, Mike Tranghese. Exactly, it was Mike. And I was having an ARP card moment there.
Tell me about it.
When we get to our age. But yeah, Mike Tranghese was hired by Mike Slive as a consultant, and he stayed through the period when Mike had to step down and then passed away, and he continued to work with Greg Sankey, and they found really good coaches that helped him. I mean, Tranghese is responsible, absolutely responsible, for Rick Barnes being at Tennessee. A lot of people would have never gone after him after he left Texas, because, Rick is close to my age, and he had one Final Four team, and Texas finally, after a long period of drought droughts in the NCAAs, he'd get them there and they'd get bounced out. He had a bad string of first-round punch-outs in his latter stages of his career at Texas. And Tranghese said, no, he's a hell of a coach. He just needs an address change. You need to hire him at Tennessee. And look at the job he's done.
Gosh, no kidding.
Rick is, and that's just one example. There have been a lot of other young coaches that have come into the league that have done a great job too. And I don't want to leave any of them out. But, when you get to a certain age and you've had as much success as he had, but your reputation is that you can't get there when you get to March, it's hard sometimes for coaches to reinvent themselves. But he certainly did that. And in the wake of the Bruce Pearl exit, which was a very unpopular exit in a lot of respects, people were disappointed with Bruce, but at the same time, there were a lot of fans that felt that, that Bruce probably had been wronged to some extent. So there was some division at Tennessee. And he did bounce back and did so beautifully at Auburn. I'm really glad, happy for Bruce. I like him a lot. But it was time for them to make a change, given what had happened. And when you look back at now what he got nailed on, how sophomoric is that, given where we are today in intercollegiate athletics, right?
No kidding.
It's amazing. But Barnes was, I think, a stellar hire. And you look at what Alabama did. That guy knows what he's doing. And they most people, when they hired him, they were like, he was at Buffalo? This guy is coming from Buffalo, really? And he can coach. You just have to do the job and know the people. And I think Mike Tranghese was exactly the kind of guy Joe Dean was talking about when he tried to tell Mike Slive, listen, I remember, I can hear him saying it now. He's like, you got a lot of football people that know football in this league, but you don't have basketball people. You don't have basketball people that understand where they are. I went and found Dale Brown. He had never been a head coach, but he had recruited all the great players that Liddell Anderson had at Utah. Got that team went to the Final Four, and at Washington, Dale Brown was an assistant coach. He got them into the tournament. Who do you think got those players? Dale Brown got those players, and plus he'll work his tail off, and he'll make people pay attention. He'll make people pay, and that's really what Dale did. And there have been a lot of guys come around that have a little bit of Dale in them that have been ultra successful since then. But back in those days, Dale Brown was never taken that seriously because he seemed to be. There's no way that guy could be authentic. There was no way that he could be the real deal. Well, yeah, he was the real deal. He was just ahead of his time.
Billy, now you're learning why in the 80s, SEC basketball tournaments were a lot more fun if Tim Brando was in the house. Great storyteller. Tim, I got to ask one other thing as a broadcaster. So you have worked with 18 million different color analysts at some point in your play-by-play life. I have never watched a game of yours where I didn't think the rapport between you and the color guy wasn't at the absolute top of the charts. Talk to me about, because at some point you tried hard to make sure that was the case.
Yeah, and when you're in the business that we're in, especially in basketball, and you're doing a lot of games, sometimes for multiple networks, which I did, with the exception of the time that I lived in Connecticut and worked at ESPN from 1986 to 1990 before I moved back home to Louisiana, I was exclusive to them and only them in those days. But in the time leading up to that, and that meant in 1985 when I started freelancing for them, I was also working for countless other syndicators, Raycom, Jefferson Pilot, Ms. Lou, you name it. I was working for wherever there was a game. And
you were there.
Form that I could get, I was there. Yeah, I was doing Memphis State Tiger games for the local television station there, WPTY. And then from that came the Metro Conference package that Steve Hatchell the commissioner of that league at that time, hired me and I worked with Jack Gibbons. I worked with Steve Brody, former Michigan player that did a little time at CBS. He played in the 76 Final Four for Michigan for Johnny Orr. And, but I think that when you work with so many different people and you're working for so many different networks, you want to be comfortable with everybody you work with. You want to make everybody else around you feel at ease. And the easier you are to work with as a play-by-play guy, the more jobs you're going to get. And when you're young, you're not getting paid a hell of a rate, a big-time rate for your broadcasting. First game I did with Dick Vitale, George, you'll love this. I'll celebrate my 40th year on the air nationally on January the 5th of 2025. Okay, it'll be my 40th year. January 5th of 1985, I did my first game on ESPN, and it was a pretty big game. It was number 2 Duke at Virginia in Charlottesville, and I got the call in December of 1984 at Channel 9's newsroom. I was doing sports at Channel 9, the CBS affiliate in Baton Rouge. I was working the games for Dale on Tiger Vision back in those days with Jordy Holtberg, the assistant coach that Dale had, the former blonde bomber of one of his team captains on his 1979 and 80 championship teams. I got a call from a lady from ESPN. It was a talent coordinator named Ellen Beckwith, and she said, Tim, we were wondering if you were free to do the game between Virginia and Duke. And I was like, well, let me check my schedule, and I've got a Mississippi State LSU game that very night, that very day. And I said, well, it just so happens I happen to be free. So I went and I did the game. I still have the check. I got a copy of the check. I have it in my study. It's framed.
I love it.
$300 I got for that broadcast. But, you add up 300 here, 400 there, 375. Trust me, Jefferson
you pay
Powell
your bills.
You pay your bills. And that was ancillary income to go along with that regular gig that I had at 6 and 10 each night. So I think that you just want to be easy to work with and have a reputation that you're easy to work with, and you get more opportunities. But I have more fun now because I'm living in the present. I'm not trying to go out and chase rainbows. I know that my career is, on the back nine. I do see the finish line, but even though I see it, I don't think I'm there by any stretch. I think I'm doing my best work now, and I'm doing the work that only I want to do. I don't work around the calendar anymore. I'm not doing a radio show every day like I did for 15 years. I'm just calling ball. And so I'm so excited to be out to do these games. I pour everything I got into them. And at the end of the basketball season, once football is ended and basketball is through, I'm chasing grandbabies and golf balls and recharging my battery and getting ready for next fall. This year they took me, they split Spencer and I up after 25 years together in football, after working 9 of my 10 years at Fox with Spencer and 16 of my 18 years at CBS with Spencer. And it was tough. It was tough hearing that we were going to be separated. I understood it. So did he. They wanted him to work with some younger play-by-play guys. They felt like they perhaps could be helped by him. And Devin Gardner, old number 98 from Michigan, he's 32. He's 2 years younger than my youngest daughter. Okay. and he's a great young talent, George. I mean, he's a great young talent. And they've got the Big Ten, and we're doing these Friday night games now. And they wanted somebody that was identified, I think, with the Big Ten to be on a lot of those Friday games. And then, and they see him being on a fast track, as they did Joel Klatt and Brady Quinn when I first went to Fox. The year I was without Spencer, I worked with those two guys, and they were on their way to stardom. Brady's doing Big Noon, and Joel's our lead voice now at Fox. So I always felt like, and I sold Fox on this when I went to work there 10 years ago, and this will be my 11th season that I'm completing after this basketball season. I told them that, listen, I'm not chasing jobs anymore. I just want to call ball and enjoy myself. I know there are limitations to where my career can go, but I think I've experienced just about all that there is to experience. And I think I've got a lot to offer, and I want to milk the most out of what's left of my career. And I think the best way for me to do that is to help younger guys. And in my time at CBS, the guy that I really looked up to so much was Vern Lundquist, because Vern was never a number one guy. He was never a Dick Enberg, not a Jim Nantz, not a Marv Albert. He was never a number one guy until he got the SEC play-by-play job. And he got that because he was replaced by Dick Enberg on the NFL. It was a demotion for Vern when he got the SEC job. And that job probably extended his career by 10 to 15 years. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it was great for Mike Slive. It was great for the SEC and for Vern. And so I told the guys at Fox when they said, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I was 58 years old at the time. I said, I see a lot of good young talent here, but I don't see anyone that's got 30 years in this business with a footprint in college athletics quite like I do. If you're growing that portfolio, I think I can help you. And I mentioned my affinity for Vern, and I said, let me be your Vern. I'm writing a book that I hope to get out by the fall of 26, and he'll have the chapter in there, and it's a pretty critical chapter in the book, will be Let Me Be Your Vern.
Wow. What a great story. Tim, it is so much fun talking to you. Promise me that sometime later in the season we can do this again.
Oh, sure. Anytime, George. I've been wondering where you've been. I've been wondering why I haven't heard from you. So I'm glad to talk to you anytime.
You know, the first time, you may not remember it, but I had replaced Jack Eaton in Memphis, and that was a real struggle.
Oh yeah.
And you came over, you and John Albright and I have stayed great friends, and you came over.
Yeah.
This would have been like December of '87. And you came over to a table at a restaurant and told me to hang in there. And I have never forgotten that.
Yeah. Well, those were some size 22s you were stepping in.
Nope. Tell me about it.
I mean, great. You were replacing Great Caesar's ghost, for Christ's sake. Those were hard shoes to fill. I don't care who it would have been. Yeah, just as when I heard Bob Kessling was stepping down in Knoxville, I thought, what an incredible run. Bob replaced me on those Jefferson Pilot games.
Right.
For I think a season. For a season, he moved up from the sidelines when I went to CBS, and then the John Ward stepped down, and that was his dream job. So he left, a pretty good gig in TV now. You got to remember those Jefferson Pilot games, George. Every game wasn't on television. I mean, we did Georgia Auburn once. We did LSU Florida once. That was the third televised game in the SEC in those days. The number 3 game. Okay. Those were really good games to have. And he left it to go into radio. And I don't think the people in Tennessee ever gave Bob his due simply because he wasn't John Ward. And that's so unfair.
Yes.
That's so unfair.
And it's funny because I just said that to him in a text the day after it got announced.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I texted him as well, and I certainly said a few things in social media too. Bob is a dear friend and a hell of a broadcaster, but I think so many times, especially when you're talking about radio play-by-play guys, and really how the business has changed for those guys in it, as television and the internet has emerged, radio has, I think, been maybe overlooked by a lot of fans, and particularly younger ones. And they're not as appreciated as they once were, and that's really unfortunate. But I just hope that Bob, and I haven't had this chance to talk to him, I just hope that he's happy with the way things have ended, because when you make that maneuver and you're going to be the voice of a team, the one thing that you hope that's going to happen there that very rarely, if ever, does in TV, is that you might have some stability. That's why you take the job, is because you're trying to stay away from the circus that sometimes is network television. And unfortunately, sometimes now, even though you may not be as celebrated as those guys from the generation ahead of us, the way it ends sometimes is not the way you envisioned it. And that's the unfortunate part. Our jobs are great. The jobs themselves are great, but there's parts of the business that are really difficult. And that's part of why I'm writing the book. I'm going to try to help people, especially young people, maybe not make some of the mistakes I made or that you made.
Amen.
Because there are some landmines. There are some landmines out there we all have to dodge.
Amen.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you. I'll be watching tomorrow.
Okay, George. You bet.
Talk
buddy.
to you.
Bye-bye.
He's terrific. Tim Brando is one really talented announcer, and the truth of it is he was talented in his 20s. You knew when you met him, he was going places.
He's good. Still going.
Speaking of which, Taylor Barnett's in the on-deck circle. We'll find out what Rupp Arena will be like tomorrow when Louisville comes to town. This is 94.9, The Fan.
It was the most horrible experience that any mother could ever go through. I knew that I needed to get help. My friend, she immediately said, "You need to call Bart Durham." And you guys were there within an hour. You guys are like family for us.
Yeah, sure is nice to connect with the people that you're doing your best to help.
It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling, they enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun. Here's Officer Garen Hoskins for the Metro Nashville Police Department.
The Metro Nashville Police Department is on the forefront of policing in this century, and I'm glad I'm a part of it. I'm glad I get to find other good officers, other future good officers. And if you're watching today, or you yourself or someone you happen to know is interested, join MNPD.com. Feel free to reach out to us because we need good officers, and it's a great city to work for.
Are you concerned about the Medicare Part D changes for 2025? Believe me, you're not alone. You need to contact Pancos Benefits. They'll make the changes clear and easy to understand. Trust Pancos to guide you through it all. Their knowledgeable team is here to help you understand the updates and make informed decisions about your Medicare coverage. Don't navigate these changes alone. Call Pancos Benefits today at 615-292-3400 and choose option 3, or visit pancosbenefits.com. That's 615-292-3400 and choose option 3.
Convenience and value, two words that we expect when we do business. Our goal at JHA Company is to deliver just that, both to our school partners and to our customers. Whether you're purchasing photos, yearbooks, class jewelry, letter jackets, school spirit wear, or senior graduation products, we strive to make the experience easy, convenient, and cost-effective. Find out more at jhacompany.com or call 615-867-6345 for more information. JHA, one source, one company.
Saturday, it's the Cricket Celebration Bowl between Jackson State and South Carolina State in Atlanta. Our coverage on 102.5 The Game begins at 11.
Your sports live here on the Game Nashville Sports Network.
It's the George Plaster Show.
Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We are back, and as part of our basketball coverage, when we get football over with, Former Belmont star Taylor Barnette will join us on Monday afternoons. And one of the things y'all will like is Taylor will take a cheap shot at me every once in a while. How are you? Why are we getting that dull a backdrop?
Well, I obviously have to rep Ellsworth Systems today, my first time on the show this year. It's good to be back. Yes, I will have some good George Plaster backdrops as the season goes on. But looking forward to this year, man. I'm thankful that I get to be on here again.
So, Taylor, when I was just getting out of school, Kentucky and Louisville had not played for like 50 years, and the state legislature was about to step in and force the issue. But there was an NCAA tournament at Memorial Gym in Nashville in '82, and I happened to buy 6 tickets in anticipation of scalping to Louisville and Kentucky people.
Yep.
The problem was MTSU upset Kentucky, and the matchup didn't happen. A year later, the NCAA said, screw it. We're putting these two together in the opening round at Stokely Center in Knoxville in, I want to say, March of '83 or '84, somewhere around there. Anyway, you have participated as a Louisville Cardinal in the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry, which resumes tomorrow at Rupp.
Yeah.
How tense is that rivalry?
Yeah, it's one of the most tense rivalries in all of college sports. I think it's right there with North Carolina and Duke basketball, Alabama, Auburn football. And, Rupp Arena will be loud, it'll be full. I think, obviously, too, with Coach Pope being new and, top 5 team right now ranked, a really good, fun to watch Kentucky team, new brand of basketball. I think it'll be a heck of a crowd and a heck of an environment. I do think Kentucky could win by double digits. Louisville's pretty banged up. They've lost a couple key players, and that's a tough break for them. But I think Rupp will be rocking, and it's a great rivalry.
So, Taylor, some people may not know you grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. And as a young broadcaster, it was such a thrill for me every time I would go to Rupp, because on that particular night, you felt like you were in the big time. You'd look up, there are 23,000 people in there. Oh, by the way, the team's pretty darn good. And all of a sudden, Calipari's gone, and Mark Pope, who felt like about the 5th choice, is in. Help me with this. It looks like he's pushed all the right buttons.
Yeah, I think that the Kentucky fans were ready for just a different brand and a different style. And, Coach Calipari, I hope he gets a standing ovation when Arkansas goes and plays at Rupp Arena. Knowing Kentucky fans, he might not, but he should, But I think the time it just had ran its course. And what's so fun about Kentucky this year, I think, is that they share the basketball. I don't know if they've, some guys on the team will make it in playing professional basketball, I think, but it's not like they have lottery picks this year. They have a group of guys that are playing together, and I think that's what Kentucky fans want to see, playing together, sharing the ball, shooting threes. It looks like a real team. And I think that just a new brand, I think Coach Pope has done an amazing job instilling a new system, and man, there's been no gap. I mean, he has come in and they're really good.
Taylor, appreciate you for coming on. Tennessee's got Illinois tomorrow and another big showdown. It's all kinds of good matchups in the SEC, but Tennessee's got a player that fans are already calling Chaz Connect as a guy that, he's not Dalton Connect, but is he a guy that can go get his own bucket? How much of an impact has Chaz Lanier from North Florida had for Tennessee, and what do you see in that one tomorrow?
Yeah, where is that game?
It's at Illinois.
It's at Illinois. That'll be a test. Well, the other thing about Chaz, he's from Nashville, went to Innsworth.
Yep.
And then went to North Florida. It's crazy. He's shooting 48% from threes, averaging 19 a game. But I got to give a guy credit on that team that isn't scoring as many points as him, but Zakai Ziegler, it's got to be really nice being Chaz Lanier if that's your point guard. a guy who loves to share the rock, defends, is experienced. I would love to play with him. So I think, Chaz Lanier, I'm not saying if that wasn't his point guard, would he be having that good of a season? But I think he gets set up pretty nicely. I mean, Zakai Ziegler has 73 assists on the year to 31 turnovers. That's pretty good. I think Tennessee will win tomorrow. I think that'll be maybe their toughest game so far. Illinois is tough. They play hard. They're big. And that's not an easy place to play. So I'm excited about that one.
Alabama hosts Creighton tomorrow night in another really good matchup. Mark Sears back. Grant Nelson is back. Latrell Wrightsell. They got Aiden Holloway to transfer over from Auburn.
Yep.
I think Alabama is a national title contender, but Auburn might be as well. How about the basketball in the state of Alabama? I think that's so fun that they are good, and not just good. I mean, those are elite programs. And Auburn's playing in Birmingham tomorrow. I think it's really cool how the state of Alabama has started to really embrace basketball.
It's about time. Yeah,
no doubt. There's so much talent in high school down there, and it's really cool to see guys going to Alabama or Auburn out of that state. It's funny. It's like Alabama's not in the college football playoff. Everybody's talking about Alabama basketball. Bruce Pearl's got Auburn basketball just at its all-time best. I think it's really fun. What's interesting about the SEC and those two teams in particular as well is they're actually old. Having Mark Sears and Grant Nelson. I mean, Mark Sears is one of the best guards in the country. Janai Broome is old, and he's might be the player of the year. I know that all the people that get to vote on it would vote on him right now. So I think it's really what's separating the SEC right now is not only is there a lot of talent, but there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of old guys that are playing, that are in their fifth year, that are playing really well and playing at a high level. And I think, both of those teams have a chance to go to the Final Four and win it all because they're complete. I think Auburn is maybe the most complete team in the country from what I've seen.
Well, a common thread with these teams is elite coaches, coaching these elite programs, and one of them already has Vandy seemingly back on the map. We'll see how they perform in SEC play, but what Mark Byington has done in 10 games, he's got them at 9-1. They've obviously got some easier matchups here before they start SEC play, but I mean, what have you seen from them so far? It's amazing what one coach can do, especially out of the portal.
Yeah, no, it's been really impressive. They're not losing games they shouldn't lose. And, I think that's probably a refreshing thing for Vanderbilt fans for sure. Jason Edwards has been a heck of a surprise and transfer. I mean, knew he was a good player. I think he was first team all conference at North Texas last year. But he's averaging 19 a game. They got a good piece in Tyler Nickel. AJ Hogarth is an experienced guy coming from a winning program at Michigan State. So they got some good pieces. They're playing well. I am intrigued to see SEC play comes along, and it is a really tough matchup every single night. The SEC is going to be brutal this year, and it's going to be long. It's going to be long, and it's going to feel long.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people say the SEC could get double-digit teams in, 10, 11. I mean, Is this the best we've ever seen the SEC in basketball? I know George talks a lot about the 80s where that was really fun, but just sheer number of teams that could get into the tournament, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was never this good.
Yeah, well, I want, out of the three of us, there was only one of us alive in the 80s. But I think that George is on his phone now. He ignored that. But I think
that's not a flip phone, by the way. When I first met Taylor, it was a flip phone.
Oh,
this
gosh.
This is true.
It was
no,
embarrassing.
but I mean, you saw what the SEC ACC challenge was like. Well, I think Duke was the only team, and they beat Auburn at home, which it's hard to win in Cameron Indoor. But I do think this is the best since I've been alive that the SEC has been. I mean, Georgia's only maybe lost one game. I mean, Auburn and Alabama were not two top 10 teams in the country when I was growing up. Kentucky's Kentucky. It's in Tennessee is number one team in the country right now. So I do think it's the best the SEC has been in a really long time.
You mentioned Duke. I'm interested in that program. Yeah, they had not a rough season, but not up to par, for them, and obviously didn't do much in March Madness. But that can be fluky, as we know sometimes in the tournament. Can John Shire get it right? He's got a ton of talent this year, of course, with Cooper Flagg. But how have you seen John Shire adjust to the challenges of that program replacing a legend?
I think he's done it as best as anybody could do. I really do. I think he's humble. I think he's competitive. I think the guys really like to play for him. He has really good talent. He's already had really good wins this year. It's just tough. I mean, when you get into March, it matters a lot. And, you have one off night. Cooper Flagg goes 3 for 10 and you might lose the game. And it costs you. So it's just so much harder than what people think. It's not just like, oh, Duke's got more talent, they should win the game. There's so much more to it. And but I think he's done the best job that anybody could do. He's come in, he's just himself. He's a legendary player there, and I think he's going to end up being a legendary coach there. So I'm excited to see how their season plays out.
Well, another legendary coach who you played for, Tony Bennett, no longer at Virginia. What can you tell us about that? And obviously, we saw it with Jay Wright, we saw it with Coach K, and the old guard not really there anymore. What can you tell us about that decision, but also how Virginia goes about their business, this year and in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Coach Bennett, he said it all in his press conference, was just completely honest about his decision. I think he started out by quoting Jim Elliott, who's a missionary, and basically he's just the way that college athletics is structured today. He's not willing to sacrifice the time with his wife and his family anymore. That's what matters to him most. And so I think that he just made a decision. I've done this for a long time. I did it my way, and college athletics is making it really hard to do it my way anymore. And so he made the decision to step down. And everybody's like, man, a couple weeks before the season, yada, yada, yada. But he's always wanted somebody within his system to take over. And I don't think that Ron Sanchez gets the job, or at least has a chance to earn the job, if he doesn't do it the time he did. And so I think he's relieved. I think he's happy with his decision, and is getting to live a little.
So for those of you listening on radio, you can't see this. Taylor has a hat on. Is that free?
Yeah. You want one?
No, I really don't.
You should, man.
No, I've got something on free as well, but it's classy.
Yeah, BGA legend. I'm just proud to be on here with a BGA legend.
I'm sure you are. You need to go support your alma mater.
I was there on Saturday against MTSU. It's a good win.
Were you really?
I was.
Did they do like a spotlight on you or introduce you? Nothing.
Oh, man. I don't need all that. Just want to go support the guys, man.
Hey, you might want to listen to the next segment. Plaster Bet of the Day, a commitment to excellence.
Wow.
Yes. I knew you'd be excited. Hey, thanks for doing this. Look forward to getting you on Mondays and talking some hoops.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it. You guys have a good weekend.
Taylor, take care.
All right, see you.
He can talk some basketball. Taylor Barnette, extremely good, and we're fortunate to have him back. I think his third year doing this with us. Anyway, the commitment to excellence is coming up next. Plaster Bet of the Day, fresh off a big underdog win on the road last night. Stay tuned.
You were in a crash.
Yeah.
Your kids were in the car with you.
We're very lucky to even be telling this story to you. Nikki treated us like family, and she was very caring and loving, and I'm just so grateful for that. She was somebody I could trust, and being a veteran, that's so important to me. My kids are going to have a better life now because I don't have to worry about those expenses that we were out. Your family has really created a legacy of trust, and I would recommend you to anyone.
Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
You know, starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
No, they don't. Here. You thought you were on your way.
Your sports live here.
On ESPN 94.9.
And the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Final segment on a football Friday. Army-Navy tomorrow. We got the first bowl game, a couple bowl games tomorrow, so they'll keep rolling all the way through the month of January, but not a whole lot tonight. So we'll see where George is going with tonight, but also rolls into the weekend with some of the weekend plays. It's time for Bart Durham's Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. Let's take a look at what happened last night, and there we go. The Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Got a win.
Very excited
Plus
about
3.
the Rams.
That was a disgusting game to watch.
It was. You're going to have to give me some signals because I know we get out about 3 minutes earlier than usual. So here goes for what I'm going to give you for the weekend. First of all, the stats will tell you that in the last 10 years, the Army-Navy game gets decided at the buzzer about 3/4 of the time. There's been a razor's edge difference between Army and Navy. I don't think so this year. I think Army is the considerably better team, a lot because I think they've got a really dynamic quarterback in this young guy, Bryson Daly. I think Army's going to win the game by at least a touchdown, and I'm going Army straight up minus the 6, neutral site at the Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call them, stadium in Landover, Maryland. If you're a little squeamish about going Army laying the 6, then let's do a 2-team teaser for you. Let's take Army at a pick in South Alabama tomorrow night. God only knows what the name of the bowl is. They play Western Michigan. The game is in Mobile. I think it's in Mobile. And we're taking South Alabama minus 1.5. Both of those have to win in a 2-team teaser for it to play out. Okay. That's really all there is on the college level this weekend. To the pros, this is a huge game for Arizona. I took them a week ago, and they laid an absolute egg against Seattle. They don't have, if they want to compete in the NFC West, Sunday against New England absolutely has to be a win, and I think it will be a win, and I think it'll be by more than a touchdown against the Patriots. The one caveat to it is that Drake May is playing really good football for the Patriots.
Yeah.
That is sort of the bright light right now in New England. There isn't a lot, but Drake May is it. And 2-team teaser, Seattle Sunday night, plus 8.5 at home against Green Bay. Big game for the Seahawks. Chiefs are in Cleveland against the Brownies, and we're going to tease the Chiefs up to +2 and Seattle up to plus 8.5. It's a 2-team teaser, and both of them have to win for your bet to win.
That's a big.
Or in this case, my bet.
It's a big Seattle line, 8.5.
Yeah, it's what happens when you take the dog.
All I gotta say is go Army, beat Navy.
I do think Army's the better team this year. I will say this. Those of you who have the time tomorrow, watch the pregame stuff. It's incredible.
It's awesome.
It'll give you goosebumps.
I love watching that.
It really will. It's an amazing thing that we as Americans ought to be proud about. Monday, Reaction Monday, and a week away from the college football playoff. Have a good weekend. This is 94.9 The Fan.